My wife's pregnant and it can't be my kid. My ex-girlfriend, let's call her Lisa, told me she was expecting a baby. The twist? I knew I couldn't VDDDTM it be the dad because, well, IVDJ Team M sterile. Despite that bombshell, I decided to just roll with it. We tied the knot about 2 years back after being together for 3 years. She was way more into the idea of getting married than I was, but I went along with it to make her happy. Then about a year ago, she was all about starting a family, so we gave it a shot. Trying for a baby turned out to be super tough, and it was rough on me, especially mentally. Things got so intense that I decided to get checked out. Meanwhile, Lisa started acting out big time, which made the whole situation even harder to handle. A couple of days after getting tested, the doctor hit me with the news. IVDJ, sterile. That was a huge blow. Even though the whole baby thing was NVDDTM my idea to begin with, IVJTMDD warmed up to the thought of being a dad. Finding out I couldn't DDMTB1 was just crushing. And just when I thought things couldn't be JTM to get any worse, I was dreading telling Lisa the truth. Given how Chev DJTMD been acting, I was really worried about how Chev JTMD take it. I was steeling myself to break the news to her, but then she dropped her own bombshell on me. Just 4 days after finding out I was sterile, she came to me saying she had big news. There I was, absolutely floored when Lisa hit me with the news that she was pregnant. My mind was racing because for a split second, I thought she had somehow figured out that I can't JTMT have kids. But nope, she was just super excited to tell me we were going to have a baby. Inside, I was a complete mess, but on the outside I had to slap on a smile and pretend to be just as thrilled, not wanting to give her any reason to suspect something was off. But man, the very next day I was back at the Dr. VJTM's office, getting myself checked out again because I needed to be 100% sure that I was in VJTMT, the father. And just like before, the test confirmed my fears. IVJTMM indeed sterile. This pretty much turned my world upside down because it meant that the only logical explanation was that Lisa was seeing someone else behind my back. The whole idea of her getting some kind of fertility treatment without me knowing was out of the question. Those treatments cost an arm and a leg, and IVDTM, the one who handles our finances. There's no way she could have afforded that without coming to me for the money. So the thought of her cheating started to eat away at me. It was such a bizarre and painful idea that I kind of just froze up. I didn't know what to do. Lisa, bless her heart, has always been super kind to him, making sure he and his aunt felt right at home when they first moved in. She'd whip up meals for them, and we've even had the guy over for dinner a few times, chatting up a storm about his modeling gigs and all. Turns out he's also into literature just like Lisa. So you can imagine they hit it off like 2 peas in a pod right from the get-go. I never really thought much of it. He seemed like a stand-up guy, and I had full trust in Lisa. But then fast forward to our party, and the moment he steps through the door, it's like the atmosphere just shifts. Lisa's face lights up in a way that's hard to miss. She zooms over to him and their hug. Let's just say it wasn't your garden variety friendly hug. It lasted way longer than what you'd expect for a casual, "Hey, good to see you." Oddly enough, it seemed like I was the only one picking up on this vibe, but it set off all kinds of alarm bells in my head. It was clear as day something was up between them, and now I was on a mission to figure out what that something was. So here's what went down. I made up some story about needing to step out for a bit, pretending I was headed to catch the train, but instead of hitting the road, I sneaked off to our bedroom to have a little snoop session on Lisa's laptop. You see, right after she hit me with the news that she was expecting, I managed to have a sneaky peek at her phone while she was catching some Z's. Didn't find anything out of the ordinary then, but getting my hands on her laptop, that was a whole different game. Every time I was hanging around, she was practically glued to that screen, either binge-watching something or typing away like she was on a deadline. Curiosity got the better of me more than once, and I'd ask her what she was up to. Quick as a flash, she'd tilt the screen away and hit me with, "Oh, just working on my novel." a line she'd been feeding me for months. I respected her space and genuinely thought she was pouring her heart into some epic story. But with all the weird vibes floating around, I started to suspect that novel was just a smokescreen for whatever was really going on in that laptop. Turns out, getting into her laptop was a breeze. No password, no nothing. After a bit of detective work, I hit the jackpot. A secret email account tucked away from her usual one. I dove into this hidden inbox, and man, was it a goldmine. It was crammed with love notes back and forth between her and our neighbor, the dude who could easily be mistaken for a Greek god or something, given he's trying to break into modeling. The guy wasn't exactly James Bond when it came to keeping things on the DL. His email was basically his name. And right there in the more recent emails was the bombshell. She told him about the baby. He was clearly not thrilled, looking to hit the eject button given the sudden ghosting act that followed. But Lisa? She wasn't about to let him slip away that easily. Then came the gut punch. An email where she's talking about hitting up a lawyer friend to start divorce proceedings once the baby's born. Talk about a plot twist. I was looking for answers, but man, I wasn't VDJTMT ready for this level of drama. All right, let VDJTMs rewind and dive into this whole mess. So Lisa was really pushing for us to have a baby, right? But here VJTM's the kicker. The whole baby-making campaign wasn't DJTMT about us or some cozy family picture. Nah, it was all about setting herself up for a sweet deal. She had this whole plan mapped out in her head where Chev DJTMD bag alimony and child support from me post-divorce. Then, with that cash in her pocket, Chev DTMD swoop off with our neighbor, Mr. Model in the making, and live out her so-called happily ever after. Finding that out by stumbling on an email? Yeah, felt like getting sucker punched in the stomach. And that queasy feeling. It just loves to make encores every time I replay that discovery in my head. But no way was I going to let that slide and wallow in self-pity. I snapped into action, took a ton of pics of that damning email with my phone and slipped her laptop back where it belonged, acting like nothing happened. The cheating part? Honestly, it stung less than the whole elaborate job she was pulling. Stepping out is one thing, but plotting to have a kid with me as part of some grand scam to finance her dream life with Loverboy? That VJTM's a whole new level of twisted. And let me tell you, Lisa could give those Hollywood stars a run for their money with the act she was putting on. I hadn't VJTMT smelled a rat until then. The more I thought about it, her being all sunshine and rainbows started to look downright eerie. But as boiling mad as I was, I decided to play the long game. I was in VDTMT about to let her off the hook easy. She needed to get a taste of her own medicine, feel a bit of the sting of betrayal and frustration that had become my constant companions since uncovering her little scheme. So, call me crazy, but I doubled down on the Husband of the Year act. For the next 9 months, I was Mr. Supportive, the ideal soon-to-be dad, sticking by her side. Every lie she told, every fake smile she threw my way just added fuel to my resolve. I was all in, attending every prenatal checkup, making sure she was on top of her vitamin game, basically nailing the supportive part. Then D-Day arrived. She started her labor. Despite the whirlwind of emotions and the nagging voice in my head reminding me of the whole charade, I shoved all that aside. I took a deep breath, stepped up, and drove her to the hospital all by myself. It was game time, and even though I was a bundle of nerves, I was determined to see this through to the end. I made sure to give her parents the heads up about the hospital run, but deliberately left my own family out of the loop. Honestly, I just couldn't VDJTMT deal with the thought of them being there if things went sideways and got all kinds of dramatic. Her folks were an hour VGTM's drive away, which meant we had a bit of a grace period, just me and her. And man, did I have a plan for that alone time. Right after we got her settled into the hospital room, I threw her for a loop. I acted all nonchalant and mentioned I was going to hit up our neighbor, Mr. Handsome Neighbor, to come by and support her. The look on her face was something else. She was totally flustered, trying to brush off the idea, saying something about not wanting some stranger around during such an intimate moment. That VJ TMs when I decided to drop the bomb. I showed her the cold, hard evidence of my fertility test, proof that I couldn't VDGJ TMT father a child. And to add to the drama, I whipped out the divorce papers I had filed just before her due date. She looked through all the paperwork, completely dumbfounded. So I broke it down for her, spelled out that there was zero chance I was the father of her baby, and then laid out the juicy part about the emails IVGATME found in her secret account. Watching the realization hit her was like watching a live drama unfold. The look on her face, absolutely unforgettable. But I didn't JTMT stick around to savor the moment. I just walked out, leaving her to marinate in the mess. Next up, I made a quick call to our neighbor, letting him know his maybe baby mama was in labor. Didn't VJ2M even wait for his reaction. I just hung up and made a beeline for my car. I waited out in the parking lot just long enough to see her dad VJTM's car pull in, and then I was out of there. Faster than you can say soap opera twist, I went full spy mode and turned off my phone, not in the mood for calls or being tracked down, and drove straight to a motel a decent distance away. I had the foresight to pack some essentials a few weeks back, stashing them in my car, ready for a moment exactly like this. So there I was, holed up in a motel room, far from the eye of the storm, with everything I needed to start figuring out my next moves. After the whole hospital drama, I spent the rest of the day just zoning out in front of the TV, knocking back a few beers, and doing pretty much anything to keep my mind off the craziness. That night I actually managed to sleep pretty well, feeling like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders now that I was through with playing the part. The next morning, feeling a bit more like myself, I decided it was time to face the music and switched my phone back on. As expected, it blew up with notifications, tons of messages from Lisa and the neighbor guy. I didn't even bother checking those. Just the thought of it drained me. However, I did notice some messages from my folks and my brother. Looks like Lisa tried to get in touch with them when I went MIA, so I figured the least I could do was give them a call back, let them know I was okay, and head over to explain this whole mess. I even suggested they get my brother over so I could lay everything out on the table for all of them at once. When I got to my parents' place, my brother was already there. They all had this mix of confusion and annoyance on their faces. Understandable given from their point of view. I just skipped out on the birth of what they thought was my kid, robbing them of the chance to be there for the grandchild's arrival too. But I took the time to spell out the entire saga for them from start to finish, including why I did what I did. By the end of my tale, they were all just sitting there, kind of stunned. I braced myself for a storm of questions, or even some heat for how I handled things. But it never came. The only thing my dad managed to say was that he hoped things wouldn't get any messier than they already were. Nobody else really had much to say after that, so it seemed like they were at least trying to understand where I was coming from. That catch-up happened a few days ago. Since then, my family's been pretty quiet about the whole thing. On the other hand, Lisa's been laying it on thick, accusing me of totally ruining her big moment of becoming a mom for the first time. Ever since I bailed from that whole hospital scene, my phone's been blowing up. Lisa's been on a mission, calling and texting nonstop, trying to get a hold of me, but I've just been ghosting her. And then, get this, even the neighbor dude shot me a text a few hours back. He's all like, Lisa's super upset and we should try to put our beef to the side for her sake, maybe even hash things out. I mean, seriously, the nerve of these folks, acting like I'm just throwing a fit over some small-time drama. And the guy didn't stop there. He drops in his text that, plot twist, Lisa supposedly started catching feelings for me again while she was pregnant. Like, out of nowhere. She's supposedly all about giving us another shot. Yeah, right. If that's the case, then why is he still lurking around, right? It just doesn't add up. Honestly, I can't help but laugh at how they think I'm going to fall for this. Sure, Lisa's mad, but what am I supposed to do about that? It's not just about her being mad, though. She's ticked off because I've been onto their game from the jump, but still played the devoted husband role. She's throwing accusations my way, saying I've been deceiving her by sticking around during the pregnancy, all the while knowing the kiddo isn't mine, and that she's been sneaking around with Mr. Model next door. It's like they expect me to just forget everything and come running back because they say so. But come on, after all that's gone down, they really think I'm naive enough to buy into this sudden change of heart? It's pretty clear they're scrambling, trying to paint me as the bad guy for not engaging in their little soap opera. But honestly, at this point, it's just more of the same drama, just a different day. So it's been about a week since the baby arrived, and I've been camped out in a hotel room this whole time. I haven't made any moves to go see Lisa, and honestly, I don't have any plans to. She keeps blowing up my phone with texts and calls, but I'm not sure why she's even bothering. I thought I made it crystal clear that I'm not up for chatting or listening to whatever she's got to say. I haven't gone as far as blocking her number yet, but I did block the neighbor after he decided to chime in, trying to guilt-trip me into going back to her, talking about how she's still holding on to some hope. I'm convinced the only reason he's hanging around pushing for me to patch things up is so she can scrape together something from the divorce, like alimony or whatever, especially since they're both pretty much not bringing in any dough. Look, Lisa chose to be a stay-at-home partner, which was cool by me. I respected that choice. It's not like she was just home doing nothing, but yeah, it turns out she was also stepping out on me, which is a deal-breaker. And for the record, it wasn't me who pushed her to quit her job. Back when we were just dating and she was working, I was all for her career. She was the one who wanted to stop working and focus on the home front. I didn't object because I was doing all right financially, and it was her call. I'm banking on my lawyer being able to dodge the alimony bullet once we lay out the whole cheating scenario, which shouldn't be too hard to prove. Fingers crossed. As for the neighbor, the guy's still scraping by, trying to land some decent modeling gigs. Figuring out how he's going to cover his bills, let alone support Lisa and a baby, is going to be a circus, especially on their combined non-income. Well, good luck to them is all I can say. I'm just relieved to be stepping away from this dumpster fire, ready to wash my hands of the whole thing. No alimony, no nothing, not even a sliver of my attention. I'm really hoping Lisa gets the message and doesn't drag this whole divorce thing out. But knowing how she sometimes doesn't think things through, I wouldn't be surprised if she tries to fight it. That said, I'm ready for whatever she throws my way. I've got all the evidence I need tucked safely on my phone and backed up on my laptop. Those emails from her secret account are going nowhere. Even if she gets smart and deletes her account, those screenshots are staying put with me, so I'm not sweating it. If push comes to shove, I might even agree to pay her some alimony just to get her out of my life for good. She ought to feel lucky, honestly. I've given her plenty of time to pack up and leave our place on her own terms. I had to kick her out, though, since the house is in my name. I'm just crossing my fingers that all this mess will be over soon. And would you believe it? Turns out I was spot on about her not having the best judgment. She wasn't happy with the settlement I proposed, which, by the way, was more than fair, just covering what she'd put in during our marriage. I don't know what she's expecting to happen here, but hey, if she thinks she can get more, good luck to her. She dropped me a message yesterday saying she'd left the house. I was kind of relieved, thinking she might have gone back to her folks or something, but nope. I found out today she just moved right across the street into the neighbor's place. So now I've got the pleasure of seeing her and her new beau's faces every day. Great, just what I needed. At one point, I actually thought about moving back into a hotel instead of staying in my own house because the situation was getting really uncomfortable. But then I thought, hey, this is my home. I have every right to be here. I'm not going to leave just because things are getting tough. I did wonder, though, why Lisa didn't just go stay with her parents. That would have made more sense, especially since staying with our neighbor could mess up her side of the divorce case even more. It seemed like she was just making everything harder for herself, but I didn't spend too much time worrying about it. As I was going through a ton of messages I hadn't read yet, I found one from Lisa's dad among them. I hadn't replied to a bunch of texts from different people over the last few days, so I almost missed his message. His message was really long. He was saying how sorry he was about what his daughter Lisa had done. He told me they didn't agree with her actions at all. Hearing this from her dad meant a lot to me. It made me feel like my feelings were understood. I was so touched that I almost started crying, but I managed to hold back the tears. He even said he was cutting her off financially because she told him she wanted to fight the divorce. Nothing Lisa was doing seemed to make any sense to me. It all looked like it was going to blow up in her face eventually. I mean, she had to know that, right? Unless she's either not thinking clearly or she's planning something really sneaky. I hope it's not the sneaky thing, but knowing her, I wouldn't be surprised. So she's basically the worst. Living like this is for sure going to cause a bunch of problems. I bet they're going to try and mess with me, make me feel bad or jealous, but I've made up my mind to not let them bother me. I know they're just looking for ways to use my reactions against me. So there I was, dealing with the fallout of Lisa's scheming. It's been a month since we started talking about how to split everything in the divorce, and it's not looking good for her. I've managed to show that she was cheating on me, and get this, she even made it easier for me by moving in with the guy she was accused of cheating with. There's no doubt I'm right about her cheating. She tried to flip the script by claiming I was an alcoholic, which she said made me unable to have kids. She argued that's why she cheated, because I supposedly became mean and bitter when we were trying to have a baby. But that lie fell apart really fast. Everyone knows I stopped drinking last year when we decided to try for a kid, and I haven't had a drink since then. Honestly, I have no idea why she thought her plan would work. It was a pretty bad move on her part. It seems like she was just throwing out anything she could think of because her original plan flopped big time. Now she's too caught up in being a mom to try and come up with any clever schemes. Plus, the guy she's with isn't exactly the brightest. So there they are, struggling to make ends meet. Both me and Lisa knew that her chances of getting any money from me after the divorce were pretty much gone. I think she must have told her boyfriend about this because just a few days ago, he kicked her out of his place in a really mean way, along with her baby. Yep, there was a lot of yelling and screaming coming from their house that I could hear. And then, in just a few minutes, I saw Lisa and her little boy being pushed out onto the street while the guy was yelling really awful stuff at her, calling her all sorts of terrible names. I was watching this mess from my living room window. The moment I saw him pushing Lisa out the door while she was holding the baby, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't stand by and watch a little baby get caught up in adult problems. By the time I got over there, he had already slammed the door in their faces, leaving Lisa and her son crying outside. I picked up the baby and took Lisa's hand, leading them back to my place across the street. Then I called her dad to come and pick her up, which he did in about an hour. He thanked me a lot for helping them out. During that hour, Lisa was crying a lot, almost as much as the baby, so I ended up trying to calm them both down. I thought about calling the police, but she begged me not to because she didn't want any more drama. She kept saying sorry for everything that had happened, telling me she was so desperate to be with the guy she loved that she lost her self-respect and morals. She said she was really sorry for it all, and that she was ready to accept whatever came next without trying to fight it anymore. This means the divorce could be settled quicker, which is something positive, I guess. I hope she decides to take legal action against the guy for how he treated her and starts to heal from all this. But at least I know I did the right thing by helping them, and I don't have any regrets about it. However, the drama didn't end there. A few days later, Lisa started showing up at my door, asking for help with the baby. She was clearly struggling, and as much as I wanted to shut the door in her face, I couldn't bring myself to do it. The baby didn't deserve any of this mess, so I helped out a bit, mostly for the kid's sake. But every time Lisa was around, she'd start with her bitchy comments, blaming me for her situation, saying if I'd just been a better husband, none of this would have happened. It took everything in me to bite my tongue and not lash out at her. One evening she showed up with the baby and a sob story about how she had nowhere else to go. She tried to guilt-trip me into letting her stay the night, I almost laughed at the audacity. "Lisa," I said, "you made your bed, now lie in it." She didn't take that well, of course. She started yelling, waking the baby and causing a scene. Neighbors started peeking out of their windows. I had to calm her down just to avoid the embarrassment. She finally left, but not before throwing a few more insults my way. I watched her walk back to the neighbor's place, wondering how long this circus would go on. I knew one thing for sure. I was done being her safety net. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions, no matter how much she tried to spin the story to make me the bad guy. After that fiasco, I tried to get back to some sort of normalcy. But it seemed like Lisa was hell-bent on making my life miserable. She kept showing up, sometimes with the baby, sometimes alone, always with a new demand or complaint. One day she was ranting about how I should be paying her more because she sacrificed her career for me. Another day she was angry that I wasn't helping enough with the baby. The worst part was she acted like everything was my fault, like I was the villain in her twisted story. I remember one evening vividly. She came over looking all disheveled and started berating me for not being there for her. "If you weren't such a useless husband, none of this would have happened," she spat out. I could feel my blood boiling, but I kept my cool. "Lisa," I said, "you cheated on me, lied to me, and tried to trap me with a baby that isn't mine. How is any of this my fault?" She didn't have an answer, of course. She just stormed off, muttering under her breath about how terrible I was. Around this time, I started getting texts from her new boyfriend. He was trying to guilt-trip me into giving Lisa more money, saying it was for the baby's sake. I blocked his number after the third text. I wasn't about to get dragged into their drama any more than I already was. I had my own life to rebuild, and I wasn't going to let them ruin it any further. Meanwhile, I was working with my lawyer to finalize the divorce. Every step of the way, Lisa tried to make it difficult. She argued about every little detail, from the division of our stuff to the custody of the baby. It was absurd, given that I wasn't even the father. But she insisted on dragging it out, probably hoping I'd cave and give her what she wanted just to get it over with. One day, while I was at work, Lisa showed up at my office. She made a scene in front of my coworkers, screaming about how I was ruining her life. My boss had to step in and escort her out. It was humiliating. After that, I knew I had to take some serious steps to protect myself. I got a restraining order against her. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. Lisa was out of control, and I needed to put some distance between us. With the restraining order in place, things started to calm down a bit. Lisa could no longer just show up at my door or my office. She still tried to contact me through other means, but I ignored her messages. I focused on my job, my friends, and trying to piece my life back together. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. Then, one night I got a call from Lisa's dad. He sounded desperate. "Mike," he said, "I know she's been awful to you, but can you please talk to her? She's not doing well." Part of me wanted to say no, to tell him that Lisa was no longer my problem. But another part of me remembered the woman I used to love, the one who wasn't a manipulative, cheating mess. I agreed to meet her one last time. We met at a coffee shop. Lisa looked tired, worn out. She didn't have the same fire in her eyes. She apologized genuinely for everything she had put me through. She admitted that she had made a huge mistake, that she had been selfish and cruel. She asked if there was any way we could move past this, even just to be friends for the baby's sake. I took a deep breath and told her the truth. "Lisa," I said, "I can't forget what you did. I can't just move past it. But for the baby's sake, I'll try to be civil." She nodded, tears in her eyes. It was a small step, but it felt like a step in the right direction. After that, things were still tough. Lisa continued to struggle, and I continued to keep my distance. But there was a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to coexist peacefully for the baby's sake. It wasn't the happy ending I had once dreamed of, but it was better than the nightmare we had been living. Even though Lisa had apologized, her bitchy attitude didn't VDDJ completely disappear. She still had moments where Chev J. Tem DD lash out, blaming me for everything that went wrong in her life. It was like she couldn't VJTMT help herself. Chev JTMD be sweet and sorry one moment, then venomous the next. It was exhausting. One day I got a call from her while I was at work. She was in full meltdown mode, screaming about how the baby wouldn't stop crying and how she couldn't handle it anymore. "Mike, you need to come here right now. This is your fault too, you know," she yelled. I sighed, knowing I couldn't just ignore her, especially not when the baby was involved. When I got to her place, it was chaos. The baby was wailing, and Lisa looked like she was on the verge of a breakdown. "You've determined her useless," she spat as soon as I walked in. "This is all your fault. If you had just given me what I wanted, none of this would be happening." I ignored her and went straight to the baby, calming him down as best as I could. After the baby finally settled, I turned to Lisa. "You need help, Lisa," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Real help, not just from me." She glared at me, but I could see the defeat in her eyes. "I know," she muttered, looking away. "But what am I supposed to do? IVJJTMAM broke, and everyone VJTS turned their back on me." That was the moment I decided to take a different approach. "Lisa," I said, "IVJTM'll help you, but you need to start taking responsibility. No more blaming me for everything. We need to work together for the baby VJTM's sake." She looked at me, a mix of hope and skepticism in her eyes. "Fine," she finally said, "but this doesn't VDTMT mean I forgive you for everything." I almost laughed at the absurdity of her statement, but kept my composure. We started working out a plan. I helped her look into getting professional help, both for her mental health and to assist with the baby. It was NVDJTMT easy, and there were plenty of times she reverted to her bitchy ways. But slowly, things began to improve. Meanwhile, my own life was starting to get back on track. I was focusing on my job and spending time with friends who VJ/TM stuck by me through all the drama. It felt good to have some semblance of normalcy again. But Lisa VJTM's presence in my life was a constant reminder of the chaos Chev DJTMD brought with her. One weekend she called me in a surprisingly calm tone. "Mike, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something important." I was skeptical, but agreed to go. When I got there, she was sitting at the kitchen table, a serious look on her face. "IVDJTMV been thinking," she started. "About us, about everything. I know IVJTMV been awful, and IVJTM sorry, but I need you to understand something. I still care about you." I was taken aback. This was the most genuine Chev/TMD sounded in a long time. "Lisa," I began, "we've VJTMV been through a lot, and I appreciate the apology, but you have to understand we can't go back to how things were. Too much has happened." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, I wanted to say it out loud. I wanted you to know that IVJTM am trying to change." I felt a pang of sympathy for her. Despite everything, there was still a part of me that remembered the good times we VDJTM had, before everything went to hell. We sat there in silence for a while, just letting the reality of our situation sink in. It was a small step, but it felt like we were finally moving towards something that resembled closure. I knew it wouldn't VGTMT be easy, and there would be more tough days ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. As we continued to navigate our new reality, I made sure to set clear boundaries. Lisa needed to learn that she couldn't rely on me for everything, and I needed to protect myself from getting dragged back into her drama. It was a delicate balance, but it was necessary for my own sanity. Despite her efforts to change, Lisa VJTM's bitchy side still made appearances. Chev TMD called me out of the blue, demanding help with the most trivial things, and then lash out if I couldn't drop everything to come to her aid. It was frustrating, but I kept reminding myself that this was about the baby VJTM's welfare, not hers. One evening, I was at home when I heard a knock on the door. To my surprise, it was Lisa of DJTM's dad. He looked weary and concerned. "Mike, can we talk?" he asked. I invited him in, and we sat down in the living room. "I know you've been through a lot with Lisa," he began, "and I want to thank you for everything you've done. Chev DJ Tim's my daughter, and I love her, but Chev JTM's made some terrible choices." I nodded, appreciating his honesty. "I'm trying to do what VDJTM's best for the baby," I said, "but DJTM's hard with Lisa being so unpredictable." He sighed. "I know. That VJTM's why IVJTM here. I think at VDTM's time we consider a more permanent solution for the baby VJTM's sake." His words hung in the air, and I knew what he was suggesting. It was a difficult decision, but it might be the best thing for everyone involved. We spent the next hour discussing potential arrangements, trying to find a way to ensure the baby had a stable environment without cutting Lisa out completely. As he left, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time I felt like we were making progress. It wasn't the ending I had imagined, but it was a step toward a new beginning, one where we could all find some semblance of peace and stability. After the conversation with Lisa's dad, things started to move quickly. We decided that the best course of action was for me to take temporary custody of the baby while Lisa got the help she needed. It wasn't an easy decision, but everyone agreed it was the right one for the baby's sake. When I broke the news to Lisa, she exploded. "You can't just take my baby away from me!" she screamed, her face red with fury. "This is your fault, Mike! You're ruining my life!" I stood my ground, knowing this was the only way to ensure the baby had a stable environment. "Lisa, this is temporary. You need to get help, and IVJTML make sure the baby is safe in the meantime." She continued to lash out, calling me every name in the book, but I didn't VJJTMT back down. It was clear that she was struggling to accept the reality of the situation. I tried to be patient, but her constant outbursts were taking a toll on me. Eventually, with the help of her dad, we managed to get her to agree to the plan. The first few weeks were tough. Lisa would call me at all hours, alternating between tearful apologies and angry rants. She was trying to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty for doing what was best for the baby. But I stayed firm, reminding myself that this was about the child VJTM's welfare, not her. During this time, I focused on creating a loving, stable environment for the baby. I rearranged my schedule, got up for late-night feedings, and even learned how to change diapers like a pro. It was exhausting, but also incredibly rewarding. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was making a real difference. Lisa's dad checked in regularly, offering support and making sure I had everything I needed. We began to discuss long-term plans, considering the possibility of me getting full custody if Lisa couldn't VDJTMT get her act together. It was a difficult conversation, but we both knew it might be necessary. One day, Lisa showed up at my door unannounced. She looked rough, like she hadn't VDJTMT slept in days. "Mike, please," she begged, "let me see my baby. I need to see him." I hesitated, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. "All right, Lisa," I said, "but you need to keep it together. No drama." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I let her in, and she rushed to the baby, scooping him up in her arms. For a moment she seemed like the old Lisa, the one I fell in love with. But then her mood shifted. "You know, Mike, if you hadn't VDJTMT been such a jerk, we wouldn't to be in this mess," she said, her voice dripping with bitterness. I sighed, knowing there was no reasoning with her. "Lisa, this is VDJTMT helping," I said calmly. "You need to focus on getting better. That VDJJTM's the only way we can move forward." She glared at me but didn't VDJTMT respond. After a while, she handed the baby back to me and left without another word. Over the next few months, things started to improve. Lisa began attending therapy sessions and making an effort to get her life back on track. There were still moments when her bitchy side came out, but they were becoming less frequent. She was trying, and I had to give her credit for that. Eventually, we reached a new normal. Lisa had limited visitation rights, and I continued to care for the baby. It wasn't VJJ Temet the life I had envisioned, but it was better than the chaos we had endured. We were co-parenting, and while it wasn't VJ perfect, it was working. Looking back, I realized how much I had grown through all of this. I had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and unimaginable stress, but I had come out stronger on the other side. I was a better person, a better father, and I had learned to stand up for myself and what was right. As for Lisa, she was still a work in progress. She had her good days and her bad days, but she was making an effort to be a better mother and a better person. Only time would tell if she could fully turn things around, but for now, we were managing. The journey had been long and hard, filled with more twists and turns than I could have ever imagined. But in the end, I found a sense of peace. I had done the right thing for the baby, and that was all that mattered. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing I had the strength and resilience to handle it. And the VJTM is the story of how I survived the storm that Lisa brought into my life. It was MVDJTMT easy, and it was NVDJTMT pretty, but I came out the other side a stronger, wiser man. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I had managed to hit it out of the park. Now I was ready for whatever came next.